All right, we are live from Houston, Texas. Welcome everyone to today's episode of What Makes You Tick. Look, I'm really excited that you're here. Before we dive in, just a few quick housekeeping notes to make this a great experience for everyone. This is an interactive live session. You are encouraged to participate, questions, anything that you can put in there, please do. We'll use LinkedIn DMs for the comment section during the posting for any behind the scenes coordination. So feel free to message us, any tech issues, not that I can solve them, but just message us anyway. If you get disconnected, LinkedIn will do that occasionally. Just rejoin. And we know that many of the listeners are commuting or working, so engage however you can. Even listeners are important to our community. Again, this will be posted later on, so you can also go back and listen and take notes, because I have a wonderful guest today. My guest today is a builder at heart. She builds teams, companies, communities, all this fantastic energy that she has. That's why we're connected, of course. She adds an extraordinary blend of strategy and soul. Maggie currently serves as head of growth at Lifeblood, which is an ed tech company, correct? Or medtech company.
Yeah, medtech talent recruitment.
Yep. Where she's leading the charge for a medtech community together through the world-class events right here in Houston, the home of the largest medical center in the world. And why isn't it the largest medtech center? I think that's one of her goals. From an intimate CEO gathering to multi-summits, she's creating powerful spaces where innovation, creation, and possibility collide. Maggie is a trained nurse, which she also does on the weekend, for experiences in hospice care, a role she still serves part-time, as I just said, bringing compassion and light to some of the life's darkest moments. At her core, she is a gentle rebel, a wild-hearted leader who believes in softness, strength, stillness holds power. Real change starts from the inside out. She's deeply committed in creating space for what matters most: courage, connection, and meaningful work that leaves the world a better place, better than we found it. Please welcome a woman I love to be around, so I can siphon just her energy and her drive, and most of us that know her the same way. Maggie Judge, how are you, ma'am?
Great. Well, I need you to intro me every room I walk into. I mean, now that was an intro.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Maggie Judge is entering the room, so please bow, everybody.
You're supposed to stand for the judge, right?
Stand for the judge. No, we're going to bow for this judge. Hey, look, you're full of energy. I'm going to put you on the spot right now. Say something inspiring.
Something inspiring. I think that we don't honor our souls enough and the creativity that lives inside of us, because we're so afraid of being judged, and we fail to realize that everyone else is feeling the same way as us. So I think there's something truly beautiful in life of just embracing your weirdness and making that come to life. And so that's kind of a big point of my life and what I do. And I lived inside of a box for a long time because my weirdness and my fire and my passion and my energy was always a negative thing growing up. It was something that everyone was always afraid of. So I was never taught to honor it until I, well into my late 30s, if not early 40s, was decided to start honoring it myself. And so it's something I want to help share with everyone and help them do. So,
no, that's awesome. What's funny is I'm laughing because we used to have this saying called "embrace the suck." So when it sucks, just embrace it. And I think you're right. Most people miss out, and it's so funny because I was one of the big things I love to do, and we'll talk about that in a second. Is I've gotten engaged in running, and today was my run day, and I listened to books. And we've talked about this several times. I take notes. Today, she was talking about how most people say no when something negative happens, like no, not me, or plays the victim, when you need to say yes. And by saying yes, that opens the opportunity to grow, to learn. And just embrace whatever's coming at you, knowing on the backside, it's going to be fine.
I agree. I think we all sort of chase the highs, but we don't know how great the highs can be if we don't embrace the lows. And there's a lot of beauty in sitting with our fear, our anger, these things that we call negative emotions.
Mm-hmm.
They're not negative emotions. They're just showing us that something is really important to us. So if we're afraid of losing something, try to spin it in a positive way and say, thank you for showing me that something is important to me, that I'm afraid I'm going to lose it. What can I do to make sure I don't lose it? And turn that inward and say, I can be then the best version of myself to try to do everything I can. But if it's meant to leave, it's meant to leave, because it was there to teach us a lesson so that we can move on to something bigger and better.
No, it's crazy. It shows you who you are, and it shows who other people are. Absolutely. That's why the authentic piece is huge.
Yes. I think sometimes things are meant to just be here for a moment. And I think it's some of the things I've learned in hospice is that everything comes to an end. Sometimes you get decades, sometimes you get days, and you have to appreciate the reason why they're here, and not to take away from its sadness, but sometimes it's a good thing if something slips away and we can, it's a lesson learned and something that we can, take and move on to the next thing. Because Lord knows that universe is going to keep throwing the same lesson at you over and over again until you learn your damn lesson. It just keeps getting harder and harder. So learn them when it's easy and move on to the next one.
Let me throw it up on the wall and see if it sticks. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Look, and the funny thing is, one of the books that I read, and we'll spot like a book real quick. One of the books that I read was called The Learning Game by Anna Lorena Fabergé or Fabergaga, something like that. All I know is it made an impact on me, and what it really does as an educator and business development, I found that you're going to sell something, you're going to do something, you have to create a buy-in. And what she talked about was helping kids to think for themselves, embrace their challenges, and love learning and everything that came with it. And she encouraged the kids to, what's funny is, ask why. Yeah. So as I'm listening to this book, because I'd already kind of listened to Simon Sinek, and we are part of Cup of Joey, which Joey will be on next week. And it talks about why. And it got me thinking, like, this was the book that made the connection of why don't we take education and create a why within our kids or within our curriculum, so that kids can understand, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is who I am, and then find a path or help them find their path, career or not. That book is one of the books that, like, I don't have really a book that impacted me specifically outside of mindset, because that's the one that started me on this journey. But that one for me was one that made a connection. How about you? What book?
Yeah. And actually, just to say one thing think about how many broken middle-aged people there are, because when we were younger, we were told, yeah, exactly. We were told not like that asking why was a problem. Imagine being a curious child and somebody shares something with you or tells you to do something a certain way, and you say why, not because you're trying to challenge, but because you're curious and you want to know and you want to learn more. And that curiosity is just almost sort of beaten out of us, that we become older and like we want to now seek the why. The why never goes away. So imagine embracing it at an earlier age in children and allowing them to express that, and how many maybe better healed grown-ups we would have if we were allowed to kind of embrace some of that. So I want to read that. Now I have to look up the Fabergé.
Right. It's called The Learning Game. It's not that long. I grew up in South Louisiana. I can't read. I got to listen to books.
I would have to say, and this was kind of hard for me because I am a big reader, especially when I was a kid. It was sort of an escape. And so about 10 minutes before, I had no idea what I was going to say until about 10 minutes before this call. And I was chatting with a coworker and I was like, you have to read this book. It changed my life. And I was like, see, there it is. And it's called The Art of Creative Rebellion by John Couch. And so he is the head of UX for Hulu, but also like a brilliant artist, just kind of by design. And so it's all about it's multiple parts, but my two favorite parts are, how do you as an employee hold on to your creativity and that individuality and what makes you you, because that's why you were hired to do that job, to be you, and not be forced into that the conformity of an organization, and how to truly honor that, even when people all around you are telling you you're wrong, like, not that you're wrong, but that who you are is bad and that you should think like them.
Yeah.
And then the second part is, as a leader, which he has, is like, and it's his journey through when he started off as, fresh out of college, and how it was being out of him and how he came back to it, how to hold on to it. And then how he uses those lessons as a leader now to truly embrace that creativity in his employees, and understand that each of them, maybe it makes his life a little more difficult, because each of his employees work a different way, but by honoring that, he gets better work quicker, sooner, happier employees. And so it's a really great book, especially being a very creative person who works differently. I have music blaring when I'm working that helps me concentrate and doing things, and trying to find that balance. And when you share an office with 3 people, and trying to keep the music on and things like that, and staying true to yourself. So
say that name again. What's the name of the book?
The Art of Creative Rebellion by John Couch. Yeah. So if anybody knows John Couch, if you could connect me to him, I would love to just have dinner with the dude. He sounds like such an awesome guy. I would love to just hang out with him. I'd love to just be at a table next to him and hear his conversations. He just seems like such a cool guy.
No, look, all of that's I'm in. You get a dinner I want to invite to.
You'll make the gumbo.
Oh yeah, okay. Or an etouffee. I can do that. Or
I think he's actually from Louisiana. I think it was something where his mom was Asian and his dad was from Louisiana, someplace. I feel like there was
a gumbo. I mean, that's exactly
Brand of Houston or something. It's been a couple of years since I've read it, so now I got to pull it back out and reread those little details.
No, you said something that look, the funny thing is, it took me forever to realize that, one, as I would love to work for somebody that I can be me, and you let me do my job, and we learn from each other and we teach each other. Because you look out there right now, people are hiring from resume, and they're looking at what you've done, not who you are. Yeah. So being able to see this, and they can see your personality and who you are. That's why this is for me, being authentic and being we were talking before the show, and she said, "Can I drop a cuss word or so?" I was like, we're authentic. So yeah, I mean, it's who we are, and you have to be that person to be able to. The other thing is, if I was dating somebody, I don't want to date myself. So why would I want to date somebody that's like me, or work for somebody that's like me? I want somebody that compliments me. And you know, I don't know. JJ, by the way, says hello.
Hi, JJ. I was like, he knows the Maggie back of the barroom purse mouth, sailor mouth. So,
oh goodness. Oh, by the way, go Tigers! LSU national championships baseball. Just got to say that. But and a lot of that leads to the next piece, which is building trust. The more authentic you are and who you are and what you're doing will build trust, and it helps to build your different values. It helps you to fill out who you are and find your values. And for me, people that know me now or have known me the last couple of years, I don't know that I was always that authentic person because I was afraid to be. Because when I was younger, much like what we were talking about, I was a skinny kid that worked his butt off to play catcher, and I got razzed by those that were athletic. And there were a lot of other things. I wore glasses and looked like, I can't tell you how many times I heard the word nerd. So it puts you in a shell. But I was determined that I'm not going to be in that shell. And now it's I'm okay with being who I am. And I found people need to be able to do that because it builds trust. What values, how do you find a way to help build that trust with people that have different values than you do?
It's super hard. I try not to take anything personally and understand that everybody is in their own head in their own way. And, Where I came from was not a good place. South side of Chicago, half of my family is in prison or dead from drugs, cousins, aunts, uncles. People in my family don't really make it past 60. If you made it past 60, you were old. If you made it past 40 with all your teeth, like you were good to go kind of
You got
thing.
20 years.
Yeah, look, yeah. So it was, hey, I'm 40, 42. I know these are all real. And it was one of those things, like I was the first person in my family on both sides to go to college. And it was very hard because I always had imposter syndrome. And I always felt like I was in the wrong place, like I was going to be discovered, like this was a lie. And at any moment, the rug was going to be ripped out from underneath me. And I wouldn't be able to accomplish all the things that I've accomplished. And, I try to remember that story when I interact with other people and just try to remember they're people too. I have sat in rooms with some absolutely fantastic, brilliant people, famous on all ends, all around the world. And they're just people, and they all have their own self-doubts, and they all have their own worries, and they have their troubles and their backstories. And at the end of the day, I think we're just people trying to connect. We're trying to find our way and make sense of this crazy world that we live in. At the end of the day, we really don't know what we're doing and what's going to happen. And we all have theories, and I'm a very spiritual person, and I do believe in something magical out there, but I really just try to do that. And I try to be as authentically me as possible. And if you like it, yay, we'll be friends and we'll hang out and you'll have a great time. If you don't like it, I'm not offended. I'm not for everybody, but it's probably highlighting if somebody doesn't like me, there's probably something wrong with you. And then I'm happy to move on. That's the universe telling me I need to go someplace else. So
I know, and we're all different, and being able to be who you are, be authentic is important in building the trust and keeping the trust. But the bigger thing is too, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but you have to be willing to trust others. And then, like you said, I don't take things personally either. If I trust you and you break my trust, that's on you. It's not on me.
On you.
So
it's on you. And isn't that the definition of vulnerability and being vulnerable with somebody? It's not divulging your deepest, darkest truths to them.
Yeah.
It's being comfortable and trusting yourself enough to open up to somebody else and saying, you're allowed to do what you do with this, but it doesn't affect me either way.
Right. No, the way it can affect you the most is you learn something. One of the things that I've adapted over the last couple of years too, that helps me with any kind of trust was, I would sit, and I know when something would go wrong or right, I would ask the question, God, what are you trying to teach me? What am I supposed to learn here? And it transfers into any situation that you're supposed to go. Let's do a quick reset. Look, I'm here with Maggie Judge, and we want to welcome you guys to the 4th edition of What Makes You Tick, an authentic, relaxed, purposeful conversation on trust, clarity, and traction. Why? To help incorporate the purpose into what you do and impact the lives of others. How do we do this? By sharing business and personal stories on building culture of trust, creating clear, impactful messages as a leader with insight on how this can build traction within your life or within your business. Again, today we have a conversation with Maggie Judge, a builder of teams, company, community, and infectious energy. And I didn't know, we've talked several times, but we don't always go too deep into what, and I didn't know. You quit school and got your GED. You had 4 kids before you graduated nursing school. You're an entrepreneur. You've had a business. And I know this because you're working in med tech for a startup company and trying to build your culture and doing nursing all at the same time. That's just, geez. Okay. So where do you start when you talk about impactful moments that made a huge impression on your life that you carry over? For me, it's God, I could sit here. I got to do this every week. I don't have to. Let me rephrase that. I get to do this every week. And, thinking for me of how do I bring up something every week? It's not, do I bring up something different every week? It's which one do I pick for this week? So for me, it was divorce. That was easy because I was so core into my family, but instead I let it impact me in a different way. And I was telling Oh, that was you and I talking last night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I reached out to my sister looking for somebody I could help grow, and I ended up finding a friend out of it, and wasn't intending to do anything, but we ended up dating for a couple of months. Completely, and it was a good conversation, that initial conversation. But if I don't reach out and I just internalize all that, I know it makes, like, those little moments are still moments that make a big impact on your life. What about you? Give me something. I mean, give me 1, 2, 3, 8. I don't care.
They really do. And it's hard because I didn't grow up in a place where I had people that I looked up to. It was more so of role models of things that I didn't want to be. And so my ex-husband was extremely abusive. And so I left him when our youngest child was 5 months old, who was born 5 days before my last semester of nursing school started. Mm-hmm. And so it was a very tricky situation. Nursing school was my way out. I knew I didn't have help from my family or anybody else. I just moved to Texas. I didn't know anybody here. And it was sort of my exit strategy. And it was always going to provide for those girls of mine. And it's very hard sometimes when you're in a dark bubble, like you said, and you're in your head and you're not sure what to do and you're just trying to survive. Mm-hmm. It's hard to also thrive. But at some point, I will say, because I was there fully, your soul will keep screaming and yelling at you. There's no denying it until you sit down and listen to it, and it'll drive you miserable. So finally, it was like, all right, God, universe, whoever's out there, whatever's going on, I hear you. Like, just break it down. I'm done trying to think that I know it all and trying to guide my own life. And I'm going to listen to you, and you're going to open it up. And along the way, you realize how important your tribe is. And not just having good people around you, but also how having the wrong people around you really bring you down too. And that sometimes it's better to be alone than it is to be with the wrong person, marriage, friends, family, whomever it is. And sometimes that sucks, but then it leads you to amazing people like you, and Cup of Joey, I met you through, I don't even remember how I found out about Cup of Joey. I remember showing up and it was like at the very beginning and there were 8 of us. And now there's hundreds of people at multiple events all around Houston, which is just fantastic. And and we just met and we live nearby and our energies just kind of meet. So it's one of those things, like, it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what your story is. At the end of the day, you have to live with yourself. And are you happy with the person you're living with?
Yeah. And the funny thing is, and you mentioned it a minute ago, finding your tribe or relying on your tribe. Sometimes that means finding a different tribe and being willing and open-minded to do that when you're going through those challenges like that. And I think everybody, it builds everybody to be different. But those are moments that you can share with somebody. And you never know when you may cross somebody's road or cross something that they need. And being, I probably will say this every week. And I say this quite often now, teaching this year for me, I guess it kind of streamlined what I was actually feeling. I just didn't know how to put it in words. But when I walked into a room with my kids, I wanted to be, granted, I taught for 20 years and then I was out for a long time, but this moment, it was different because of everything that we'd been through, because of business development. If I walk into a room, I want to be the energy in that room, not for me, but I might be the only positive energy that you see in a day.
Yeah.
So why would I want to bring you down?
Yep. And it's like, just be the good you want to see in the world, and there's some days where I have to put myself in check and I'm like, wait, what's going on? Why am I off? Why am I grumpy? What's happening? And it's, again, one of those things like, thank you, baby Jesus, for highlighting something that's kind of off in me for some reason, that it was pulling something up from my soul that I wasn't paying attention to. And then something magical comes of it. And you get to walk into a room. And I will tell you this, I mean, as a hospice nurse, I didn't just case manage or see patients. My job, and to this day, my job is the death nurse. So when a patient is actively dying, I am the one that goes and sits bedside with them. I'm the one that usually is there to pronounce the death, be there with the family. And I'll tell you what, not one time have I ever heard a story about, oh, he was, he had millions of dollars. She had all the Louis Vuitton purses in the world and all the shoes and the cars. It's always about how that, I got goosebumps, I'm covered in goosebumps. It's always about how that person made people feel.
Yep.
And that is the legacy that you leave behind. And I think we get so wrapped up in this world because we're so disconnected from what makes us happy, because we feel like we can't be happy because we're stuck working jobs we don't want to work. All of us would rather be on a beach drinking a margarita, not sitting under fluorescent light.
No. I want a whiskey. What? I don't know what you're talking about.
They got one in each hand. That's why God gave us 2 hands, right?
Give me a whiskey with a chaser.
So it's one of those things that like I kind of take into like every day going, I only get this day once.
Yep.
And am I going to ruin it by choosing to be negative, or am I going to choose to embrace everything that comes my way?
No, and the obstacles that we face, there's consistently obstacles that we have to face. And I know people, and granted, there's times in my life where I'm that same way, especially when you're by yourself, where you get an obstacle and you go, I don't want to face that. But you have to, at some point, somehow, you have to. I mean, how do you do that? And how do you stay persistent to be able to reach your goals? What's your mechanism that keeps you going so that you face those obstacles?
For a very long time, it was my daughters, and it still is. It's kind of changed a little bit, but again, being the generational curse breaker, in your family is never easy, but it kind of switched when I realized how my oldest daughter is, the stress that comes with her, because she now gets to live the life every single one of us. I'm going to cry. Every single one of us women in our blood has always wanted to live and didn't have the opportunity to do it. So a lot of times when it was in those dark moments, I knew that, and I didn't believe in myself. I knew that I needed to do it for them.
Yeah.
Kind of keep going. And now it just feels right. I think being in tune with yourself and the universe and kind of just learning to trust and living a life of either it's a hell yes or it's a no. If it is not a hell yes, it's a no. And I'll just keep going and I don't feel bad about it. That hell yes really keeps me going because it just keeps bringing more hell yes momentum. And it kind of just keeps going, that I realize when I get stuck someplace, it's because I did something when it was a no and I should have said no and I didn't. And it kind of puts things back into perspective for me.
Yeah. And look, a lot of those are going to lead to some failures. And
we're talking to a lot of failures.
I'm a baseball guy. You failed all the time. And I know it's an overused analogy, but I swear to this day, if I don't play sports and I don't play particularly baseball and love the game, the amount of failures and obstacles I had to overcome. Now I look at the failure as, my age and my kids, and I look and go, okay, so what? What are you trying to teach me? What am I supposed to learn? Or that's not my path.
I think that this is the thing that I really hate about all of the social media and everybody just trying to sell their next best whatever program and this and that, is that everyone is projecting the success without really talking about the failure, because for every one success, there were 10 failures. And we see it all the time in medtech. I mean, we help these companies come to market. It's what I've been spending the better part of a decade doing now. And for every one climb up the ladder, there were 14 times we fell down and the ladder entirely crumbled and we had to rebuild the ladder. And I hate how everybody leaves that out and we only talk about the highlight reel. And I think that that's a big thing for people and companies as we're trying to move forward, is that we're comparing our failures to everyone else's successes. And we really need to stop doing that and pull back and just realize other people suck too sometimes and they fail. Like they're not all great and we don't even know if their story's true. It's just selling books and getting you to click like so that they make more money,
Yeah, you look, what is that really authentic? The person that's on there that's trying to sell something or do something, are they being authentic? It's funny because we started a business and it hasn't worked out to like it was supposed to. And I look back sometimes and I had a job where I was making six figures, and I quit that to start the business. We took a chance, took a risk, which you're obviously a risk taker. I've known you long enough to say, yes, you're a risk taker, whether you shake your head or no. So it was funny though. I don't consider that necessarily a failure, because if I truly look at it, it allowed me to be there for my kids. Now, we couldn't go on vacation and do other things that are yeah, are allowing us to be the best that we can be. And sometimes you can look on Facebook and you can go, when you get in that low and go, oh, crap, they're there, man, I used to do that. Those are failures, and you have to be able to look at them as not a failure, but something that you're supposed to overcome, or something that's telling you. I mean, am I wrong there?
You're not wrong at all. I think that, that's the lessons of life, is that I don't know what we're all in such a hurry to get to, because we're all going to die. Like that's where we're all going. And we're rushing to get to this. Isn't that a song? Rushing. Oh, no, I can't come to it. Like,
I don't know. I don't have a memory.
I'm going to send it to you. It's like at the tip of my brain. I'm rushing and I don't know where I'm going. Oh, it's like an 80s song. I totally got it. It'll come to me. But we're just rushing to get nowhere. We're rushing to get to our grave. And that you're sitting here looking at all these moments that you're rushing through, and these beautiful lessons.
Yeah.
And time. I know I worked at Travelers Insurance for a few years. It doesn't sound like a big deal now because everything's telehealth and RPM. But back in 2014, 2015, when we built the telehealth program for the state of Texas, and I got to help lead that was a big deal. And I had to step away from that company. I was in the management program. They had hopes and dreams that I was going to be the CEO of Travelers Insurance one day in my mind, And I had to step away because I was gone for 12, 13, 14 hours a day. It was an hour and a half commute one way. Oh. And someone else was raising my children. And that's not what I had children for. And they weren't going to suffer because I chose to be a single mom and leave their dad and do all of those things for good reasons, but to move on from that. And so that haunted me for a long time, but it was a lesson. And I found a beautiful job. That's how I got into hospice, where I had most of the time off and I could be with my kids. And so it just all worked out perfectly. But it's hard sometimes when you're in the moment to see the beauty of it. But
and Jeremiah just chimed in. He says, our post does not define our identity, nor does it define our future success, which is, well said. So, this will be our second reset. Look, thank you for listening. This is my fourth podcast. I'm on number 4. It's crazy. And I actually like this.
Well, you're great at it. It's fun.
Thanks. No, it's called What Makes You Tick. And today we're looking at Maggie and what makes her tick. And we're having an authentic, purposeful conversation on trust, clarity, and traction. Again, if you have any questions or comments, we'd love to hear them. We'd love for you to engage. Just send us a DM. I do see a couple that are in there. And Maggie, so far, just in our conversation, if you've got one thing from everything we've discussed, what would you share? What's your takeaway? What would you share with everybody?
That's a great question.
Put you on the spot.
No. I love it. I think it just, again, in the craziness of the day. And I think this is the first time I've actually all day since, like we were talking before this, I went to bed at 2 a.m. and it was up at 6, and I've been nonstop until this moment. And in a good way, I love
you're excited to be on my show.
And I couldn't sleep. And I love what I do. So it's not a complaint or anything. It's that I love this. I love sharing my story, and it's just a reminder of how important our community is and our network. And again, and that's what I'm doing, is helping to build this community in Houston, and really knowing that like we can give so much back, and that we reshifting the focus, I think, is that it's not about having that dream job, that title. And like you said, Jeremiah, none of that means anything to anybody except you, And I think about all the time, like how many people who you've ran into and they're like, oh, I used to live in Georgia. So you'd hear all these people all the time. Oh yeah, I hiked the Appalachian Trail, man. It took me like 7 months and it did this. And I'm like, no one can verify that. Like, how do you know how much of any of that's true? So it's like all these titles and things that people make up and try to do, like, at the end of the day, none of it really means anything. It's all just like made up stuff. So I think that's kind of the biggest takeaway, is remembering that none of that matters. Those are all just labels we put on ourselves to fill, I think, some voids that we think we need to be the president. We need to be the CEO of Travelers Insurance, or we're nobody. And it's like, no, I'm somebody to me. And I think that's all that really matters.
No, great set. It's sometimes those moments where we have stuff taken away to clean our slate, to be able to see actually who we are. It's like you've got to remove all this stuff that we put up in front of us so you can see the path that you're supposed to be walking down, or the fork that's about to come up. If not, it's going to kick you in the butt.
Yep. It's so true. And if 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 3 years ago, somebody would just say that I would be where I'm at right now, I would have laughed. I would not have believed them. Not in a million years.
Okay. So what would you tell somebody? What would you want? Let's say you're sitting back and you're talking to yourself and you're going, sorry, I had a thought. I'll have to come back to my thought after you're sitting back and you're sitting with yourself and you're having this conversation about something that you were afraid of back then. What would you tell yourself? And it would be the same thing that you'd give to younger people.
Yeah, I'd say it's not as scary as you think it is to follow your dreams. Just stop being afraid and just do it. You don't need other people to do it for that. Not to do it for you, but I think I've always kind of felt that I couldn't do it on my own. That I had to kind of be right behind someone else and kind of letting them lead the charge, and I could kind of be there to support them, that I can do it, and that I am brilliant in my own way, and that's good enough, and that I could do it. And it's not as scary as you think it is to love yourself.
No. And, it's funny because one of my focuses is really being able to help others and help them with, especially the young generation. And one of the things, you never know, like giving advice to yourself or giving your advice or talking about your story, telling your story. And that's kind of what one of the focuses is I really want to focus on, is just having an authentic conversation of our stories. You never know when you're going to make an impact. And I've with the amount of kids that I've taught, I run into them randomly in random places. And I ran into this kid Tuesday. We've got a standing happy hour with a group of guys, and it's funny. I get a call. You never get this call. I get a call from Discount Tire. By the way, I will boost them. I get a call from Discount Tire. I got new tires a year ago, almost a year, about 11 months ago. And for whatever reason, they didn't apply my $250 credit. And he was calling me. I guess they were cleaning up, and he found it within the mess. And so they ended up applying it to my other credit card. I'm like, are you kidding me? And it's actually there. I'm looking, and I keep looking, going, okay, it's there, and they're not taking money out. But while I was sitting there, I walked outside so I could talk to him. I get this tap on my shoulder, and I'm talking to this guy, and I look, and he goes, I could hear your voice. And it was one of my kids. I recognized him, but where I was, I couldn't think of who he was. So after I got off, I walked over there. We were talking about 5 minutes in. I go, I know who. I didn't do that, but to myself, I thought, I know who you are. And he and I were talking, and we were just having an honest conversation. I know he had been through a bunch of crap and made some very poor decisions that put him in this spot. But he just randomly said, I've never told you this before, but something I remember you sitting down with me, and he could tell me the details of me sitting down with him and what he said, or what I told him. This was back in 2016 or 17. And he could remember, and the way that conversation went helped him to stay out of more trouble than he was, and made a bigger impact on his life. But he didn't know that now, and I don't know. You just never know when you're going to make an impact on somebody's life.
You never know. But think about how beautiful that is, because we all know people who have made some sort of impact in our lives, and we've probably never even had a chance to say anything to them. So you've definitely done the same thing to them. There was this record. Okay, I'm dating myself again. I'm pretty sure I've already said my age, but when I was
No,
like
you
16,
haven't.
I worked in one of those like CD recyclery stores. You know, you bring in your CD. For the young kids out there, a CD, they had burn music on there. You would bring
Wait, no, was that an 8-track? So you're not that old.
Right at the end of that, I remember coming home and waiting for Billy Joel to come on the radio, Uptown Girl, so I could push record on the tape so that I could have it on the tape. So pretty close.
So go ahead. Sorry, tell your story.
No. So it was like, you know, you come and you bring in your old CDs and you get cash to buy new CDs.
Mm-hmm.
And so and I love music. Anyone that knows me knows I love music. And there was this crazy CD of just like some compilation from like some New Orleans radio station. And I was from Chicago, so I don't know how it made it there and all of that.
It's New Orleans.
Nolans. I was eating my gumbo while listening to it. And there was a song on there, and I love blues, and so it was a blues song. Mm-hmm. And right before it, the guy, I don't remember his name, and I've tried to search this up for a million times because I would love to hear it again. But the song was like, you got to do what you want to do and be who you want to be because people are going to laugh at you anyways. And I was like, wow, like what a beautiful sentence. Like, who cares? Like, or people are going to talk about you anyways. I messed it up. Sorry. People are going to talk about you anyways. So would you rather be yourself or a fake version, imposter version of yourself and know that people are still talking? And so I still think about this over 30 or 20 years later, 30, how old am I? Do that math. I don't know.
No, it's funny because same thing. By the way, we've got about 5 minutes, or I always run over. So probably another 8-9 minutes. If you have any questions, please, if you're listening, put the questions in. I'd love to ask Maggie a question or two before we get out of here. It was funny because, I don't know that you've probably never, there's a lot of people probably never heard this. I was afraid to talk to girls whenever I was in high school, college, up until I got married.
I think that's a lot of boys, though. Isn't that the story of like why like a more of an introverted man has an extroverted woman? You know, like
yeah.
Somebody to tell the waitress he didn't order mashed potatoes, he ordered French fries, kind of thing. You ever heard that joke?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, and what's funny is it's still, I still find that pop up even at my age. I still have that, even though I don't really give a shit about what most people say. Let me rephrase that. I care about what you say, but it's not going to affect me on who I am. And if it's impactful, I'll pull out the pieces that are impactful. If it's a lesson, I'll pull out the pieces that are a lesson. But you're not going to take my energy because you want to say something negative or be negative. But there's still that fear. There's still, even as old as I am, I don't know why, there's still a little bit of that fear. It's crazy.
Well, I think some of that still comes up as that imposter syndrome. We all want to be included. We all want to feel loved and chosen. And so maybe the feeling you're not going to take it to heart as much as the positive comments that somebody might say, but it still becomes a part of you. Anytime you're around somebody's energy, their words, anything like that still becomes a part of you. Yeah. So it's hard to not want to be accepted. So we generally don't want to put ourselves in situations where we're getting rejected. And so that's a hard one. That's a good thing to kind of work around.
But the funny thing is, like I've learned, we were talking failure earlier, that's still a failure. But why is that more of a bigger impact than something like losing your job? You know what I mean? Like it's different to everybody.
Do you love your job? Do you know? And it's that connection. We're supposed to be connected. That's a hard one. And going through loss and being allowed to feel that pain and to mourn and to not want to be rejected. And I think it gets harder the older we get because obviously we have been on this planet. There's more opportunities for us to be rejected and then hurt. And how do you stop that wall from being built around your heart? Because at some point you're trying to stop the bad from coming in, but you're also stopping the good from coming in and learning how to break that down.
Yeah. So that goes to, my next thought, which leads perfectly into like, for me, what I found and through Cup of Joey and through everything, I really was able to slim down. I knew who I was, but able to put it in words. For me, trust, clarity, and traction have always been a huge piece of my life. But if you could take what you just said, how would you tell a young person how much that trust, that clarity, and that traction make in their life?
I would say it's actually very important, but you need to have what is like your token. What is that thing that keeps you grounded to your alignment? There are moments where you are going to be pulled out of your alignment and and I call it the whirligig, and you are going to be lost in the whirligig of life out here. And understanding that clarity of who you are and what you want, it's okay to get lost in the whirligig, because sometimes it makes your path a little clearer. Sometimes the whirligig isn't out here, it's right in front of your path, and you had to kind of go through the crazy to clear off the path. Is to just know that, like, sometimes you just have to trust, and you have to live from here and not here, because a lot of times we live from here and we try to force things to happen instead of trusting that they're going to happen. And it's very much a think it, feel it, manifest it. And so if you're thinking it, but you're not feeling it, it's not going to happen. So if you're always living here and not in your heart and through your soul, then it's much harder to make it happen.
No, and you have to be able to find that clear messages there. And sometimes even that may be the longest thing that may take the longest, because you don't always understand what the message is trying to tell you.
Yeah.
But we're already a couple minutes, about a minute or so past. So one thing, if you have one thing that you could, the biggest lesson you would give a leader from our conversation, what's the biggest lesson you would tell a leader?
Trust the people that you've hired, but also trust in your own power. I think it's very hard when you have a leader who doesn't hold true to guide it. If you are the CEO at the top, you are creating the vision for your C-suite, for your heads of, your executives, everyone that's there. And so it's your job to tell us what the vision is, and then trust that we can take that vision and make it come to life within our own sections of the company, and to let that go. So trust your power, create the vision, help lead it, and then trust that the people you've put in place, if you've done it right, we do recruitment, we can help you find the right people, will bring that to life.
You know, what's funny, as I'm listening to you, and it made me think, one of the things that I would tell a leader is, you don't always have to have the answers, but as a leader, you have to know who to go to and have the right people that can answer that.
Yes. And I will tell you, with all the CEO coaching on the product side that I've done for the last several years, is I say that all the time. When you're looking to an investor and they've gone through your deck and they're sitting there with you, they already like the product. They want to see if they want to work with you. So if you have all of the answers, they know you're scamming them, and they want to know that you've made the mistakes with other people's money, not theirs. So it's okay to say that you've made mistakes, that you've learned. It shows that you're human. Nobody's perfect. So if you can't sit there and be humbled with yourself and share that with people, they'll see right through your and call BS on it.
Yeah, exactly. Look, it's been awesome. I want to invite our audience today to make sure that they connect with Maggie, follow the show, subscribe to my What Makes You Tick, or What Tick Pulse newsletter on LinkedIn. Maggie, if you want to reach out to her on LinkedIn, perfectly fine. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And any other way that they may reach out to you that you want to share with them?
Yep, I'm the Judge Maggie on Facebook, Instagram, all the things. I think I do the stuff. LinkedIn is great. And yeah, I'm happy to always connect and reach out to people. I love helping build communities, and just, you never know what can lead to something else. So
I love it. And look, thank you for being my guest today on What Makes You Tick. It's been an awesome experience.
Yes, this was fantastic. I'm so glad we did this. And thank you for letting me, even though I hounded you to be on here.
I didn't have to hound. Come on. I ain't that hard. All right. So let's make an impact on the lives. No, let's go ahead and make an impact on the lives and the communities through trust, clarity, and traction. And one of my phrases that I developed through Cup of Joey is be transitional over transactional. You can find Maggie on LinkedIn, stay connected with her on any of her social apps. She's a great follow. For deeper conversations, if you want to review this conversation, check it out. It'll be on LinkedIn. I believe you can get it on Facebook. I'm still learning everything. So if you can't, please message me or email me. Maggie, it's been amazing.
Yes. Great, Bryan.
Thank you so much. Join us next week when we'll have a conversation with a gentleman that represents how we connect through purpose. Mr. Joey Sanchez will be with us. Have a fantastic week and a fantastic go out and celebrate the 4th on Friday. See ya.
Bye.